So now let's continue on and talk about the challenges in this world in a modernized cloud environment. And from the last point, I think one of the keys of a modernized cloud environment is that mix of old and new applications and infrastructure. So even if you have a modernized front end or various components, you often have to live with older infrastructure or legacy services. And there's a mix. It's a mix of old and new technologies. And so the pain points in this environment, often they can be very hard to change and scary to deploy. But why is that? I think a lot of it has to do with the more complex systems have higher cognitive load, and it's just a more complex solution. So to be able to understand how to change it, often the older systems, they have one person who has worked on it for years. They are the expert. But when those people leave, you need to understand how to change it. What are the implications of changes and so on. But when it's older and there's more technologies involved from the back end, from the database, from the front end, even with a modern full stack application, it's harder to stay across things. And so when these things get hard to change and scary to deploy, the natural thing is to deploy less often. And that that can reduce the frequency of the pain, but it often compounds. So instead of deploying, say, once a week or even once a month, it can shift to once a quarter or once every 6 months, twice a year. And when you're doing that, the small change sets grow and the complexity of release goes up and up and up. And so what that often leads to is failures, deployment failures, even incidents and outages. And it just reinforces that pain, whereby when it breaks, well, then we're not doing that again. We have to be more careful, but it doesn't get better. And so these are key pain points working in this modernized in modernized cloud environments.
Yeah, one thing I'd add is the all the great new cloud offerings. It's not just about getting your code to run in that environment from a runtime perspective. It's also configuring all the knobs and buttons that they have available. And I've seen plenty of times where the copying of the code is automated, but not all of the configuration. And then when a configuration setting needs to change, oh, well, now we have a few manual steps in there. And then therefore we have a mix of automated and manual, and that doesn't accomplish the goal. And then the complexity of the additional knobs by going to the cloud, well, it actually doesn't solve any problem because we didn't choose the right automation architecture. So I mean, it's great, but there's some things we got to watch out for.
I completely agree. And I think with like to your point, Kubernetes is this amazing platform for building scalable, resilient applications. But in terms of being a flexible platform, it is it's the highest degree. And so all of those key points, how it's configured and all of that feeds into the complexity and challenges of working in one of these environments. So now I'd like to talk about cloud smart versus cloud first. And so this is a topic where when the public cloud was really gaining popularity and organizations were doing lift and shifts and like just moving it very broadly, anything they touched or a new project, they were shifting to the cloud. But again, pain points that wasn't always the best strategy. Because nowadays, especially in today's economy, no organizations, companies, they can't stop all work and rewrite their applications. When you're thinking about a brownfield application, and like almost everyone that I worked on was business critical, it powered the business, and a lot of these systems power the world that we live in. But you can't just stop everything, just park that and do a rewrite because that takes too much time and nobody has that ability. So to be able to modernize something, it's all about priorities and strategy. And so setting yourself up for success, and this kind of ties back to the brownfield and greenfield, where a greenfield project could go turn into a brownfield one if you don't have the right architecture. And so here I mention an evolutionary architecture where you try and start right, set yourself up for success, and then iterate and avoid past mistakes. And so it's about understanding what's your current state, but also where do you want to go? What is that future state? And then it's all about that strategy and the priority of what you want to update. Sometimes that could be smaller components to test out certain new technologies or approaches, but other times it's for a large complex system and you want to modernize or update it. It's the one that you want to be able to innovate with. It's the one that needs attention. It's public facing, or it's critical, or it's used by a large group of your customers or users, and you need to improve it and improve it quickly. And so that's where the priority can come in. And so instead of being cloud first or going broad, we're just going to, anytime we touch something, we're going to move it to the cloud. It could be, what are the right areas that we need to move to the cloud to get benefit for our customers to be able to ship, iterate, etc.